can tell me, you can tell me when you want me to start the slides.
Well, since this is your lot in life, I would love it if you would just go ahead and have it be ready.
All right.
And we are just going to give people another second. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, and
And
I'd encourage you to throw your name and where you're from into the chat.
yeah, and it's 6:01, so I think it's okay to start. So officially, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am Elizabeth Warner with the League of Women Voters, and we have Catherine Tercer and Mia Lewis, both from Common Cause, Ohio. We're thrilled to be with you tonight. Mia, do you want to talk a bit about why we're here and what we're doing?
Absolutely. I would love to. So we're here with Fair Districts, which is a coalition, which is we are redistricting advocates, nonpartisan redistricting advocates. And it's here you have us, the League of Women Voters and Common Cause Ohio. We're leaders of Fair Districts. So, and there are many other groups that are part of Fair Districts. But we're here to do a brief letter to the editor training. We do not expect this to be more than half an hour, probably at most. And the most important thing is that this whole fight right now, we fought to get the amendment on the ballot. We won that fight. And now we have a fight to win and win in November. And that fight is really about getting the message out to say yes on issue 1. And the folks who are against this amendment, who want to keep gerrymandering, who want to keep their power, they're doing everything they can to confuse and Ohioans and to make them really wary of the amendment. To, you heard about, I'm sure, about the ballot board putting very, very dishonest and confusing and actually inaccurate summary of the ballot measure. And so, Ohioans want to end gerrymandering and they want fair maps, but they're not sure that, seeds of doubt are being sown as to whether or not this is the way to do it. So a letter to the editor is a fantastic way to just share really good, clear, straightforward information about why we need to vote yes on issue 1. It's a way to put the good message out there, to reassure people. It's from a trusted messenger, which is you. You're not a politician. You don't have a vested interest. You're clued into what people's concerns are, and you have community-specific knowledge. So that is what this is all about. It's a great way to, spread the word and influence people within your community and your circle, and to basically shine a light on the message, yes, on issue 1. Did I miss anything, Elizabeth? Anything else, or Catherine, that we should say about why it's important to write letters to the editor?
Well, I think you said all the things. I'm going to add to this a little in a second, but another really valuable thing. So not only are you a trusted messenger, what you have to say is unique. So there will be, op-eds, there will be articles, there will be endless ads. And so that's one layer that is, how people are going to be understanding this amendment. And then there's the personal layer. There's, my district office is 2 hours away. It's really hard for me to get there, or fill in the blank of why this is personal for you. So we can just go right into it, and we can go into the next slide. There is a winning formula to this. And so I think having that formula in mind is helpful when you are constructing a letter. So very basic, start with your subject line. So you are identifying what the subject is, and that you are identifying that this is a letter to the editor. And so that way, when the folks who are reading this, who get 5 million emails a day, they can look at it and immediately know sort of how to categorize it in their brain, where to put it. And the subject line should be pretty catchy, and something that you can lead with. So keep that in mind. Frank LaRose seems to not know how to do his job, for example, and then you go on from there. The next thing is your introduction and the reason you are writing. So who are you? I am Betty Sue. I am a teacher in Franklin County. And why is this important to you? Well, my school district is split, or whatever the reason is. Or you have a particularly unique point of view that is relevant to redistricting, share that. Like I said, making it personal makes it much more likely for the letter to be published. It's just more interesting. There are going to be a lot of people with opinions, and the more interesting and unique your perspective is, the more likely it is that it will be published. And the more specific, the better. So truly, like, I am a teacher. My school district is split between 2 congressional districts. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And often when you're talking about something specific, it's kind of counterintuitive, but when you're saying specific things, it almost helps people understand it more than if you're making a general statement. It's almost like, think about, songs from, or lyrics from songs, that there's a really specific experience that the songwriter is describing. And somehow we all understand it, because even though our experience isn't exactly like that, we get it when people talk about it from their own history. So, and then after you've kind of said, top line, this is who I am, this is why I'm writing, then you get into, why is it relevant in this moment? What is happening right now that you can connect redistricting to? Is it healthcare? Is it, right now, Ohioans passed reproductive healthcare last year, but the legislature hasn't done the things that they probably should have done with that in mind. Why haven't they? Because they have an extremely gerrymandered, we have an extremely gerrymandered state, in which the people who occupy the state house don't really feel like they have to listen to their voters. So find something that is salient and in the moment, that you're able to make that connection for voters. It's often also a good idea to connect your letter with a recently published article on their site. So that also inclines them to publish it, because 1, it helps them get more views for the article that they published, if they can link to it in your letter. And 2, it just shows that you are paying attention, that you're a reader. And I think there's something psychological that they want to reward people who are, still readers of papers, because there are fewer of us. So a thing to think in mind, or keep in mind. It's a little trick. And what else? And then you close with an action item. So the biggest one, vote yes on issue 1, right? Like, that's the big thing that we want to have in every single letter. Yes on 1. We want that all the time. If you feel like there is an opportunity or space, you can also include a smaller ask. So something like, if you'd like to read the amendment yourself, go blah, blah, blah. If you, want more information, you can go to the Fair Districts Ohio site, or the Citizens Not Politicians site. So that's kind of the structure. You open it with the main, this is why I'm writing. You go into who you are, why you're writing. You go into why this is relevant right now. And then you finish with your ask, which in this case is vote yes on issue 1. We can go to the next slide.
So
So-
Iris had an interesting question.
Let's see, say.
Iris, do you want to share your question, or do you want me to just read it?
All right, I had to find my little unmute button. We've got about 75 days, excuse me, before the election. Of course, fewer days until early voting. Is it better, since papers or online publications are unlikely to print more than one letter to the editor from a single individual, is it better to send that now or wait closer till at least early voting starts?
Yes, and
Mm-hmm. That's a
both.
great question, though. I feel like we should get you all on a schedule and
Yeah, that would be great.
you know, one a week from
Yeah,
everybody here.
I think it's really important to be strategic like that. Absolutely. There are really good reasons to write letters now, though. And that is, you know, many people are just starting to hear about this for the first time. So the earlier we can get the facts in there and human perspectives in there, the better. Also, the insanity of the ballot board is, like Mia said, like Ohioans want to support redistricting. This is sowing some doubt for them. So right now, it's really important that we are showing up and putting these things out in public. And then Iris, like you said, like then, you know, in not very long, early voting is starting. So there's never a bad time at this point to be sending a letter. Like from here on out, keep going.
And I think it's worth thinking about, one of the ways that we can best fight misinformation is what they call inoculation, which is meaning get good information out early, and it helps support people when they hear things that don't make sense or are genuinely wrong. So I liked Elizabeth's yes and.
Yeah, pre-bunking is what we call it, you know, before it gets to be a mess, address it head on. Okay, so in addition to that formula, there are some do's and don'ts to keep in mind. I think the very first one is keep it short. Typically, 200 to 300 words is what is the limit. There may be publications that have a larger word count than that. I would still keep it under 300. Papers are much more likely to publish something that is short. One, because it's, you know, it means that people are going to get the point more easily because there's just less for them to sort of consume. But also they want to be able to publish as many letters as possible. And so if they have shorter letters, they can publish more of them. So, and then the next thing is to just pick one thing that you want to focus on. There are 50 million ways to leave gerrymandering. I couldn't quite get there in time. And there are a million things to talk about. We can and have been talking about this for years, but you have a very, very tiny window here to get your point across. So you have to pick just one thing that you want to focus on. And so again, it can be my district office is, you know, 2.5 hours away, or nobody ran against my incumbent this primary. And so, you know, seems like nobody's really holding him accountable. Or, you know, again, my school district is split into 2 different, you know, US congressional districts. That makes life hard. Whatever your one thing is, just pick one thing and stay there and just do it well. And then the next thing is to write for a general audience. I don't know about you guys, but in my life, I feel like I'm kind of in this bubble of people who we know, you know, this is like, we're obsessed with these things. Like, you know, I refer to Frank in my regular dinner table conversation, and my companions know who I'm talking about. So that's not normal. I don't recommend that for the average person. So don't assume that the person that you are writing for will know some of the things that we might take for granted. So that's one. And then just generally, don't use things like acronyms because you want to make sure that that the reader understands what you're talking about. So unless it's something that is universally understood, don't say CNP, don't say, OBB for Ohio Ballot Board. Make sure that you are clear and the writing that you're doing is accessible. The point of these letters is to expose other voters to persuasive arguments that help them understand why voting yes is important. And so it's important to, kind of assume middle, low knowledge and information as you're going in. And then some kind of tactical things or practical things rather. So when you are submitting, include your name and contact information. They're not going to publish this, but they ask you to do that so they can verify who you are. The guidelines that for each outlet has specifics to what they're asking for. When we send out our follow-up email tomorrow, we're going to include kind of a mini toolkit for this. And one of the things that includes is a list of kind of, 40 of the most prominent publications and a link to either their editor or the page on their site that explains what it is that they need for letters to the editor. So you'll be able to see exactly what the paper closest to you requires. And then share it in an email. So no snail mail letters. It takes too long, number one, and number two, who knows if they would even get it. So have your letter either in the body of the email or attach it in a Word doc or a Google Doc. And then if your letter is published, share it on social media. So amplify it within your own networks, tell your sister, your mom, your friend to share it so that it just kind of keeps getting more and more amplified. And then we can go to the don'ts. Negative. Okay, so don't make it complicated. So again, and I know for some of you who have listened to us do messaging training, you have heard us say this before, don't get in the weeds. Stick again to one point that you are making. There are so many ways that we can talk about this, but you only have space for that one. And again, don't make assumptions about what people know. And I just really quickly, in addition to, we're only talking about one thing and here's all the reasons why, people, and when I say people, I mean me too, we have really short attention spans and there are so many things competing for us at any given moment. I think many of us have at a minimum of 2 screens open 40% of the time. So just the fewer words in general that you can use, the better. And also don't use a form letter. So there may be organizations, and this may have already happened, that they are providing, their members or their, just supporters in general with a form letter that you just put your name and, district in. They're not going to be published overwhelmingly. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 will get in here and there, but newspapers can smell that a mile away. So don't do it for that reason. Also, those letters are boring. And so they're just not persuasive tools most of the time. And then, so like I just said, do include your letter in an email, and you can do it in a Word doc also or a Google Doc. Don't include a PDF. It just makes it harder for them to edit when you do that. It's just an extra step so that, anytime you're asking somebody to make an extra step, you're just less likely to have them do what you want them to do. And then finally, don't get discouraged if your letter isn't published. I would say keep trying, number one. So, refine it to the issue of the moment. If it doesn't get published that week, there will be something the next week or the next week after that could be relevant. And 2, even if your letter is never published, when the paper is seeing a volume of letters on one subject, it tells them that people care about it. And that means that they're going to devote more resources to covering it. And that means that more people generally will have access to this information. So those are good things. Even if it truly never sees the light of day, you doing this is genuinely helpful, even if you never directly are able to bask in the light of a published letter. And that's it. We can pause for.
That is such an
last-
important point. I love that point. I love the idea of them being absolutely flooded with letters about Frank LaRose and the ballot board, or, you know, yes on one or whatever it is. And then, you know, maybe they publish one and the others aren't published, but you've made your point.
Yeah, you're sending a message no matter what. Yeah.
So I think Elizabeth's really kind of gone over, you know, it's short, you're saying one thing, you're saying it in an understandable way. We just included some talking points to just in these slides, just so that you have some ideas. We're not asking you to use these exact words, but we're just saying, you know, if you're looking for some help with, you know, what the problems are, we'll send these slides. You can look through these. Ohio's gerrymandered. Gerrymandering's cheating, rig maps. The ones I put in orange are, you know, more personal. My community is currently in 2-3 districts. My community is not represented in the current maps, whatever it is. So those are some talking points about the problems. These are some talking points about the citizens, not politicians solution. You know, this is the way we're going to do this. It's going to be balanced, 5-5-5. It bans politicians. It requires an open and transparent process, et cetera. So these, again, these are not things we're saying you should use exactly, but you can use these to kind of think of some things that you care about that that you want to include. The last talking point, the demand, keep it simple, be direct, vote yes on issue 1, yes on 1 for fair maps. We definitely want that said at least once. And then we did want to share some resources with you. Citizens Not Politicians campaign put together a toolkit, which, you know, all of these toolkits are kind of similar. So we basically have 3 tools or toolkits, one from Fair Districts, one from Citizens Not Politicians, and one from Common Cause, that are similar to these slides in the sense that they tell you these are the things that you should focus on. These are some talking points. This is how you put it together. And they also have some, you know, actual list of newspapers. And I did want to just show you, if that's okay, Elizabeth, I'm just going to show you the Common Cause tool because it's a little bit different. It actually, oops, that's not the right link. Let's go over here, which is the correct link, and I will correct that. So this is a tool that is specifically about citizens, not politicians. And how it works is you put in your zip code and then you hit next page. And then what it does is it pops up newspapers that are here. I have tried to persuade them to take out the ones that are not relevant, but you can just unclick the ones that you don't want to send to or that are not, you know, and then you put in your name and your email address. There's some instructions here. And then again, there are these talking points that you're not using those exactly, but again, they give you the ideas if you want to use them. And then this is a box where it limits you to 300 words. You can only put in 300 words. So once you've put that together and you hit submit, it's going to submit to all the newspapers that you've clicked off here. And it kind of does that automatically. So that is, you know, that's one way to do it. You don't have to do it that way by any means. But that is one option that you have. And again, I will make sure we have the correct link here and we will be sending this to you. You'll have it. And then my final piece of advice is you could actually do this as a party. You could have people over and you could sit and, you know, write letters to the editor together. We definitely want you to share your letter, whether it's published or not, share it in on your Facebook, in your Facebook groups, in your Slack channels, however else, sometimes people just send a letter to friends and say, this is what I just wrote. And I think that, that's a great idea too, just making it fun. So that is all we have. I'm going to stop sharing slides and just see if anyone has any questions.
So I did think there were questions in the chat that I thought it might actually be worth talking about.
Yeah. I see you, Catherine, do you want to jump in? I see you've answered a couple of them.
The one question was about, if I want to be in the Sunday paper, how early do I need to get it in? And so the best way to think about this is a lot of the decisions at editorial boards are made on Thursday before Sunday. So you are often much better, like, Tuesday, Wednesday at the very latest is the best way to think about that. The other thing is, there are letters to the editor that are, how can I put this, a little bit more evergreen, meaning they're ones, that are going to, your story about how you feel about gerrymandering isn't, like, it could be published today or it could be published in October. And so when you're thinking about whether it needs to be timely, a good way to think about it is if there's an article today and it captures your imagination, you're like, oh, I want to comment on that. It's a good idea to start writing right away, if possible, to get it out like as soon as you can. And that doesn't mean immediately, but you want to give yourself time to think and do well. But a good example would be if you wanted to comment, for example, on the article that about the ballot board, the one that was in Cleveland.com or the Plain Dealer today, it would make sense to start working on your response to that right away. I am going to throw a tool in right now that I think will be helpful. So basically it's a history of ballot language. And it's just, in case you're like, okay, I'd like to be able to say the number of words that were used in 2015 and 2018 when the members of the ballot board were friendly to the amendment versus today. Some of those kinds of things, a little bit of research can be helpful. And we are here to help with research. So if you're like, wait a second, I want to add a little tidbit, we are here to help you.
I was going to answer Sally Francis. Yes. So the Common Cause tool, it's just to a specific zip code. But in the Fair Districts Toolkit, if you look at that one, you click on the link and you look at that one, there is a list of, as Elizabeth said, there's like, the 40 top publications in the state. So you can definitely feel free to send to more than one.
It's a great question. Alfred, did I answer your question about the PDF? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I think you did.
I say this as a fellow busy person. Even if something seems to somebody else like, oh, I'm asking them to take like one, extra step, like who cares? What kind of lazy cur won't do that? When you have zero time and you have to do one extra thing, you're like, nope. So we just want to not give them a reason to say no before they've even gotten a chance to read your letter.
I am that lazy cur. I was going to say, when you said that, I was like, I hate unPDFing things. It's such a pain in the neck.
It is. It is.
And I'm just going to show you on the screen here. So the Fair Districts Toolkit that is linked in the slides, and we'll send all of this, has all these tips and everything. And then afterwards it has these links to all the newspapers, and they are, organized regionally. And these links are either it's an email of the person, or sometimes it's actually a link, like the newspaper has a link that it wants you to use to submit. So you'll have all of these here and you can, scroll through them. So it's just a different option, but we'll share both with you.
I think it's also worth noting that it's good if you get a letter to the editor published, it's worth sharing it with us and sharing it out on social media.
Yeah.
because the reach is even bigger once it's on Facebook or it's on Twitter, X, or for that matter, even Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, so I think what Catherine is saying is share it with us and we'll put it on our, our Fair Districts social media platforms, our Common Cause, our League of Women Voters. So that just, exponentially amplifies your words. So, and we want to just celebrate you. I think, it would be exciting if you got one published. What other questions, thoughts before we let you get back to your evening? Has anyone ever had one published that, like, I saw yours, Sally, but that you were just like, I am a winner? Yeah, man, I love watching you laugh.
Well, hopefully we always celebrate when we manage to get something published, right?
I had one published when I was 19, and it was the first time I'd ever done one, and I was like, you couldn't talk to me for like a couple days because I was like, I am really important, and I just had a letter published in the Dispatch. So, so it's a good feeling. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow we will send the toolkit that has all this stuff in it. We'll send the slides, and we'll send a recording of this too if you'd like to watch this over again. Thank you so much.
I was going to say, Elizabeth, before we say goodbye, I noticed Patrick Henry's comment. Patrick Henry's comment, which made me realize, when we go back to gerrymandering, there's an argument between historians about whether Patrick Henry was the first guy that manipulated district lines to his own advantage, or Elbridge Gerry. And so I could think this could be a really interesting, an interesting a connection, a cool letter to the editor about your namesake, founding fathers doing us wrong with their gerrymandering, or Patrick Henrying.
But to answer your question, so those are the things that we want to be prepared for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to find somebody who's like, but I love gerrymandering. So
That's why they put the word gerrymandering in the ballot language. They said that the amendment requires gerrymandering because they know that people don't like it and it'll throw them off. So, they know gerrymandering is so bad that the only way to stop people from taking their beloved gerrymandering away from them is by pretending that the amendment will force people to gerrymander even more. So,
yeah, I mean, it's upside down world for them. It's hard to argue with insanity, right? So don't just keep making the same positive points that we are making. Yeah.
Yes on one.
Yes on one.
Big banners.
Yes. Shout it from the rooftops. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Be well. Let us know if you need anything. Take care. Bye-bye.